Hello, we are live. This is Leslie.
And Stephanie, good morning.
And we are from the Hand Readers Guild. And we are here today to talk about stars in the hands. So, stars in the hands actually don't look like five-pointed stars like you would see on the flag or when you draw a star and you take your little pencil and you do your little typical five-pointed star. Stars in the hands have 6 stars. They actually look like asterisks.
In between 6 and 8. There could be 8.
Yes, we can go up to 8, but generally you have to have a minimum of 6. 3 lines that cross and meet at a central point to make 6 arms, or up to 8. You can have 7. It's a little bit lopsided.
Yeah.
But they, well, yeah, sometimes one of the arms isn't complete. I have at least one example that looks like that. So we're going to show you some examples today. Let's start by looking at where you might find some stars in the hands. So these are some of the more common places you can find stars in the hands. You can actually find them all over. You can find them on your fingertips, on your thumb. They can be almost anywhere on your hands. But these are the ones we see commonly. Wouldn't you say that these are the most common ones?
Most common ones, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So the most common ones that I see is the Apollo star, which is under your ring finger. The one under your middle finger is called the Saturn Star. The one under your index finger is called the Jupiter Star. And that little green one that I've got down here at the heel of your hand, that's the area known as the Mount of the Moon, and that would be a star on the moon or a moon star. Now, I don't see a lot of moon stars. I think, Stephanie, you see a lot more moon stars than I do.
Yes, I see a lot of, I actually see quite a few of all of them. But the majority is either a Jupiter star or a moon star.
Okay, I guess because I have artist life purpose and the Apollo star is associated with creativity, I probably see a lot more of them for that reason. So, all right, let's look at some specific ones. So here we've got a star of Jupiter on this hand. And if you look under the index finger, you can see that little asterisks shape. And I'm going to just show you there. I've got it colored in purple, so you can kind of see what it looks like, where it is, in case you weren't catching it before I did that. But I'm going to go back to this slide here so you can see it again now without the purple on top and see what it actually looks like. It's not uncommon for Jupiter stars to kind of creep around the side of the hand and look like it's falling off your palm. Have you seen those?
I own one of those. So yes, I see it all the time. It's slowly coming around to the front, but it's always been to the side.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So the Jupiter star, let's talk about what Jupiter star means. Jupiter is Jupiter is also known as Zeus in mythology, and the head guy, right? So when we talk about Jupiter, we're always looking at leadership and power. So the star of Jupiter is an indicator that someone has special juju around leadership. So what else would we say about that? Sometimes what happens when people aren't using it, it's because they feel a lack of confidence, right? What was it that, Richard, who was my teacher, he used to say that if you were not stepping up to be the power on the throne, you'd end up as the power behind the throne. Or he used to call it senator's wife syndrome. Have you heard that one? Stephanie, are you hearing me? Senator's wife syndrome. He used to call it senator's wife syndrome, where you were the one like fetching the coffee instead of the one standing up in front of the podium. giving people your opinion and telling people how it should be. So that is the Jupiter star.
Sorry, I completely missed all of that because my internet went down for a second. So
I saw that. I saw that. So I was talking about how Richard used to call an unused Jupiter star, or a underused Jupiter star. He used to call it senator's wife syndrome. Have you heard that one?
Oh yes, senator's wife or the stage mom.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Where you're the one, fetching the coffee and taking care of the little details instead of the one delegating.
Right, right.
Right.
This is also called the valedictorian. So
I hadn't heard that term.
Yes, when you're in full use of this gift mark or this star, you are really right on the person of influence. You have high achieving goals and you achieve them. And yeah, that's called the valedictorian, the smart one.
Yeah. The person with the big ideas.
Yeah, that would be the master, and then the student would be the senator's wife.
Right.
Learning your abilities.
Right. Okay. So the next one we have is the star of Saturn. Now, this person has a pretty large star of Saturn. When I see Saturn stars, a lot of times they tend to be small. Sometimes they're hidden by other lines.
Yes.
Or kind of debilitated because they've got other lines kind of breaking them up. But because the Saturn star deals with a topic that's kind of hard for people to talk about in our culture, money.
Money and self-worth.
Right, right. Which some people's self-worth is associated with their money, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
So,
exactly.
So there we see it with the big blue lines on top, so you can actually see what we're talking about. But I'm going to go back here to looking at just the hand. And you can see that's a pretty large one there. This hand has some pretty deep lines. And so Saturn star, as someone who has a Saturn star, whether it's big like this one or teeny tiny, is here to have a lot of resources, to have access to resources, whether it's self-worth, actual money, be able to make money, be a good business person. What else would you say about it?
It is considered the Midas touch, where anything you touch, you make it worth its while. It's very business oriented. Most of it is, I see a lot of people and it's on their right hand most of the time, which is helping other businesses gain the success.
Right.
So sometimes you need to think about what your self-worth is, and are you gaining success with that as well?
Right. So what we call it when it's underused or not used at all is the cobbler's son who has no shoes. That's a little euphemism for you help everybody else get success, but you yourself have an empty bank account.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's happening, if you're seeing that you're helping everybody and you have this Saturn star and somehow you're not getting paid for what you're doing, you have to rethink what you're doing and how much you're giving away, and a little more focusing back on the self. Yep. So let's move on to the third one, which is the Star of Apollo. The Star of Apollo, I mentioned it a little bit earlier in our introduction, has to do with creativity. The Apollo finger, or the ring finger, is the finger of being on center stage, stepping up, shining your light bright in the world, being playful, being creative, being the big deal. So we call, actually in old palmistry days, the Star of Apollo, they would see that and they would say, oh, you are destined for fame and fortune in the arts. So that's what we call it, fame and fortune in the arts. It can be fame, it can be, money is really more the Saturn star, but fortune in the arts means essentially like success in creative endeavors. Mm-hmm. Now, here you see it. I kind of drawn on this one in yellow, so you can see where the star is. But when I take that drawing away, you can actually see that this star has one of its arms that's kind of a little short and not in as long and clearly drawn as the other 5. And I wanted to use this example so that and that's the one that's pointing up towards the pinky finger. So I'll go back again. You can see there I have it drawn in all the way, but when I take that away, you can see it's actually not drawn in all the way on the hand itself. So I wanted to add that in there so those of you who are watching can see that sometimes stars are incomplete or messy, and that's a sign that the owner of that star might not be using it to its greatest ability.
There's something missing.
Something missing.
Keeping them from achieving that fame and fortune, even if it's in their own realm of people, it's still just one piece that's not quite there. Right.
It needs a little more work to get it right to its full brightness. Mm-hmm. So what happens with fame and fortune in the art star if we're not using it?
Oh, we might have a fear of being on the stage. A fear of tomatoes is what we call that.
Right. Somebody's going to throw tomatoes at you if you're up on the stage.
Yes.
You're going to get rejected.
Boo.
Right. Right. Yes. And what happens a lot of times to people who have this, when they're stepping into that, they just start to think, why should I bother? Mm-hmm. Why should I bother? Well, you should bother because it'll make you feel good. And it's playful, and then the next idea will come, and the next thing will come, and your imagination will be just on high, and other people will see that and be inspired.
Right. And
that's why you should.
Maybe you didn't find that wasn't your audience. You just haven't found them yet.
Right. Mm-hmm. So yes, when you have this star, it does mean you are supposed to have an audience, and there are some people, some introverts, for instance, who might feel a little uncomfortable with this, and yet they are being called. Because if you have this star in your hand, you cannot avoid it. And that's true for any of the stars. If you have one of these stars, you cannot avoid using it. You're being called.
It just happens. You're not even aware of it most of the time.
Right. Yes.
Until you're aware of it and you're like, wait, I didn't mean to do that.
Right? Exactly. Okay, so then the last one, let's talk about the last one. The last one is star on the moon, or the moon star. So the mound of the moon is the little heel of your hand, right? Oh, I keep doing this in front of the camera. Right down here. It's the side opposite the thumb, at the base of the hand, close to your wrist. That is called the mound of the moon. And I don't see a lot of moon stars. When I was putting the slideshow together, I was looking really, really hard to find somebody who had a nice, clear moon star. And I didn't find one that I really wanted. But what I did find was this particular person who has multiples. And they're kind of light. So when I go back here, it might be a little hard to see them. But now that I've pointed them out with the little color, when you go back, you can kind of see where they are, even though they're a little pale. So we'll just hang out there for a while with the brightly colored ones. And let's talk about moon stars.
Moon stars are flashes of insight, and they depending on where they are in the zone of the moon, it could be talking about discovery, the zone of discovery. Like these 3 little ones, they are like in formation of how they would set on the moon portion of your hand. So that the upper one is more of the zone of discovery. The middle one is more of practical intuition, like using your intuition as you day-to-day gut instincts. And then the lower part is more of the archetype images of like angels and more of spiritual.
Right. So really where you start to get into other realms where you have that kind of access. So this whole general area is associated with insight, imagination, intuition, meditation, psychic abilities, wisdom. Those are all keywords we use for the moon. So what happens when somebody's not using their moon abilities? I know this one well.
Go ahead and talk about it, Leslie.
Stagnation. You
Oh,
start
yes.
to stagnate. You start to feel like you just can't like grasp anything. You start to feel like life isn't moving anywhere and you can't figure things out and you're stuck and it feels very heavy. So that's, yeah, it's not fun. It is not a fun place to be.
Right. And there is a possibility for depression, and trying to get out of that is very difficult sometimes. It could be a lifelong thing, or it could be just a simple, like, this is just happening at this time in life and I'll get through it.
Right.
But yes, that stagnation is, so horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. It is not fun.
No.
It is not fun. So, so those are the main places where we would see stars on the hands, the most common ones. But I just want to talk about the fact that we can also see them in other parts of the hands. So you can see it on the mound of Venus. You can see it on the top of your thumb, under Mercury, on the tips of fingers.
In the Mars.
Mars, yep. I think we actually had a Mars star in our last episode on Venus and Mars. There was one there. So if you didn't catch that episode, be sure to go back and look for that, because we did point it out. So those are other places. So just as a general wrap up about stars in the hands, I want to mention the fact that in the system that we were trained in, the International Institute of Hand Analysis system, that these stars are all considered marks of giftedness. And what does that mean? A gift, by definition, must be given. You don't get to keep it just for yourself, hide it in a closet, keep it under the bed.
I don't want to share that with people.
You have to share it with people. You have to share it, because it's like you have an conscious contract signed with the universe that said, if the universe came and said, hey, if we give you this gift, do you promise to give it? And you went, sure,
no problem.
Yeah, not realizing exactly what that meant. Like, oh gosh, if I use my gift of creativity, what if somebody rejects me? And then you have to like work through all that. Now, in the system when we learned it, those sort of opposite things like the depression for the moon star were described to me as a penalty. Like, this is what happens if you don't use it. But I don't like to think of it as a penalty. Right. I like to think of it as the nudge, where the universe is kind of pushing you on the shoulder going, okay, it kind of feels crappy to be depressed. What are you going to do about it? Well, the way out is to use that intuition for the moon star. Or when you feel rejected with the Apollo star, it feels lousy. And so the only way to correct that is to actually embrace the gift. So to me, rather than calling it a penalty, I like to say it's the nudge from the universe saying, okay, we're making you kind of unhappy here so that you'll remember that you promised to use this gift. And that is where you're going to find your joy.
Yep. I use the pendulum aspect. You know, when you're on it, you're really good up here. And then when you're not using it, it comes back at you.
Yeah, that's another way to think about it.
Yes.
That's another good way to think about it.
It's not good or bad. It's learning from your experience.
Right.
And how are you going to take that lesson?
Right. And actually, you kind of have to go and learn both sides of it, because you can't really understand how the whole thing works without actually kind of falling off the wagon here and there. And that's how you get better each time. And you get more committed to using your gift, because you realize what's going to happen when you're not. You're just going to go, don't like that. Let's step it up.
Yeah. All
right. So we hope you found this little intro to giftedness stars in the hands interesting. And if you did, please subscribe to our channel. Give us a little thumbs up under the video on YouTube. There's a link below for our Facebook group where you can come in, and we have a lot of posts and diagrams about hands if you want to learn more there. And we are working on a website with some classes that we're going to be doing down the road and other information on hands because it's what we both love. So we hope to see you at any one of those places or back here for our next episode.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.